Welcome to Pursed History. We have numerous examples of empires, kingdoms, and cultures found by the might of a reason, religion, or tribe. For example, India as a region dominated South Asia during the zenith of its civilization. Religion, Christianity, and Islam have dominated Europe and Asia during. But seldom do we come across empires formed out of acute pressure of annihilation and destruction. Such is the story of the Marathas, a group of people from the western India called the Sahyadri mountain ranges. They banded together to overcome numerous odds. And they came together to save their culture, their people, their land, and their honor. And out of this struggle was born a huge empire called the Maratha Empire, or sometimes it is referred to as the Maratha Confederacy. Now, this empire, the beginning of this empire is being credited to Shivaji and his bands of local leaders, and out of that struggle were born leaders like Sambhaji, Shivaji's son. Then you have Tarabai, Rajaram, Peshwa Balaji Vishwanath, Bajirao, Nana Fadnavis, Madhaji Scindia, and Tukoji Holkar. We will be talking about each of these individuals in our upcoming series, but today we will cover how did this empire begin and what led to the foundation of this empire. Let's go back to the Middle Ages, somewhere around 1550s, and you had a empire called Bahmani Empire which was coming to its end. Out of this empire was born 5 empires. One of them was Vijayanagar, and then other 4 were Shia Muslim empires. One of them was the Adil Shahi of Bijapur. Now, the Prime Minister of Adil Shahi of Bijapur, Malik Amba, was a very fine general, and he started recruiting and training the Marathas. Now, why did he start recruiting and training the Marathas? Because one, the Marathas generally were living in the hills and mountains of Sahyadri, so they were physically capable. The other thing was that they were also breeding horses. So you have 2 kind of horses. One is the North Indian. So basically Indian condition is not suitable to breeding of the Arab breeds of horses. So the horse trading used to be carried in northern India through the passes of Afghanistan from Turkish land and the Arab land. Now, those passes were being blocked by Muslim empires, which were basically the Mughals or before them the Sultanates. The Marathas were breeding the Dakkani breed of horses down south, which were smaller in size but were apt for the Maratha people because they were also lighter inside, so it was better for them to carry them around. Now, the Marathas started enlisting into the Malik Amba army, and early Maratha leaders were Shahaji. Now, who was Shahaji? Shahaji was father of Shivaji, and he was named Shahaji Bhosle. Shahaji Bhosle, a literary leader under the Adil Shahi Sultanate, and he acquired land for himself in and around the Carnatic region. So he was the Subedar of both Bangalore and Pune. Bangalore, he remained the Subedar of Bangalore for around 30 to 40 years, during which period he has been credited to maintaining the region very aptly. His son, so he had 3 sons, Sambhaji, Shivaji, and Ekoji. Sambhaji and Ekoji stayed in Bangalore with Shahaji. Shivaji Bhosle was sent to Pune with his mother to look after the Jagir of Pune with one of the Brahmin prime minister. You can check out the name. So Shivaji started his his childhood in and around Pune. Used to be so Shivaji was acquainted with the pain of the people on the ground. One. Now, let us look at other incidents that has happened in Shivaji's lifetime. Like his father Shahaji was arrested from his bedchamber and thrown into dungeon. His grandfather was not treated very well and was punished in the Adil Shahi domain in the kingdom. And there was one more very peculiar thing at that time, at that period, that these 5 sultanates, the Adil Shahis, the Nizam Shahis, the top position were acquired by people from mostly in and around Iran, because these were the Shia dominated factions. During the same time, you had the Mughals ruling in the north. So the Mughals were only ruling Hindustan and Malwa at that point of time, and the region of Punjab. The southern part were ruled by Vijayanagar and these 3 empires. Now, Shivaji banded together a group of people in his when he was in his early 20s. He bounded a group of people together, Tanaji one of them, on which a movie has been made, and he started slowly capturing one fort after the other. So there are numerous forts today which are standing there, the fort of Raigad, the fort of Purandar, and I'll be telling you which fort he captured first. And Shivaji not only used force of power, but he also used deceit. He also used his brain power to overcome the kiledars of those forts. Most of the kiledars at that point of time were mostly small Maratha chieftains who were serving the Adil Shahi Empire. Now, slowly, gradually, when he started taking over one fort after the other, the land that were related to, basically the land which were coming under the control of the forts, also started coming under control of Shivaji. So this is the beginning of the Maratha Empire which was laid. Now we will need an entire chapter to cover how Shivaji came across the Mughals. There were invasion from the Mughals, then there was this treaty of Purandar. He was sent to Agra where he was imprisoned, and then he came out of that prison, and then it was in Agra, and he drove down back to Pune, in and around Pune, Raigad. And so you can understand the kind of mobility the Marathas used to have in those periods. But today we will cover the advent and the Maratha history in a surface level, which means after Shivaji. The Shivaji died in 1680 and left a fair share of western part of current day Maharashtra and some part of Konkan into the hands of Sambhaji. Sambhaji became the king after Shivaji. Shivaji has 2 main sons, basically Sambhaji and Rajaram. Rajaram was younger. Rajaram's mother was trying to put him onto the throne, but Sambhaji overcame that and he became the ruler of the Maratha dynasty. But as he became the ruler of the Maratha area, the country was invaded by Aurangzeb, who was the then king in the north, basically the Mughal king. What happened is that Aurangzeb's invasion completely uprooted the economy, destroyed the economy, the ecosystem of the Deccan. Because if you have an army of 1 lakh people, on those days you have entire city moving around you. So you used to live off the land. So you cannot have a constant line of grain coming from Agra or Delhi to here. So what you do is, as an army, you have to plunder the land. So the entire Maratha land was plundered by this invading army. Sambhaji ruled for 9 years. He kept on fighting the big force, and the tactics that were used to fight was guerrilla, because the Marathas were very mobile. They were cavalry driven, which is horse driven, They were very mobile in the forest terrain as well. So big armies found it very difficult to move in forest terrain, but the Marathas were very apt moving between the mountains and in the forest terrain. Now after Sambhaji, this fight is continuing. Sambhaji has been captured by a general of Aurangzeb. He was executed, he was tortured brutally for a month or so, he was asked to convert to Islam and then was executed. Now when Aurangzeb executed Sambhaji, he thought that chopping the head of a king will have an demoralizing effect on the Marathas, but actually it went in the opposite direction. The Marathas were not so united till then, united under the leadership of Tarabai. And then you have the first war of independence. Actually it was not 1857, it should be the first war of independence should be the 27-year war fought in the Deccan against the entire might of Mughal army. And when I say Mughal army, it had army from the Ganga plains, from Lahore, Turkish army, and also the Rajputs. They are part of army, and there are a lot of Rajputs like Jaswant Singh, Raja Mirza Jai Singh, who were part of Aurangzeb's army. Actually Aurangzeb became the king with the help of Raja Mirza Jai Singh and Jaswant Singh. That's another chapter. So this 27-year war, the first 10 years Rajaram was the king, and he moved out of Purandar and went to Jinji, which is in current Tamil Nadu. He kept on fighting from there. Tarabai kept on fighting. Tarabai was the wife of Rajaram, and Tarabai, after the death of Rajaram, kept on fighting. So this war was mainly led by Tarabai. So first 8 to 9 years was led by Rajaram, but Rajaram was not on the spot. But Tarabai, in the second half of this 27-year war, almost chased Aurangzeb pillar to post. And Aurangzeb never returned back to Delhi. He died in Deccan. And he was even attacked, and very closely. He was attacked in the sense in his own tent. He was attacked and he escaped very narrowly out of it. By 1707, you had death of Aurangzeb, and now there was a war started among the Mughals and the princes among the Mughal princes, but who will become the next king. Since Aurangzeb was so strong a character, the history has never talked about what happened to Mughals after Aurangzeb. There are other kings, but they were not so significant, because by 1707 Marathas had become a major force and power. By 1920 they were already traveling to north. In 1720, and in 1720 Peshwa Bajirao became the prime minister of the Marathas under Shahuji. Now this is a very, very significant change in the history of India, because he was one cavalry leader who used to raid from Pune up till Delhi. So he appeared at the gate of the Delhi. Today you might find, and you will be amazed, how these people used to travel from western part of the country to the northern part, and he was also traveling from Pune to Nizam's territory, and from Pune to Arcot, which is down south, Tamil Nadu. So Balaji Bajirao, through his cavalry and his mobility, had managed to create a Maratha presence pan India, north, south, east and west. By 1740, the death of Balaji Bajirao Peshwa. 1740, by then the Marathas has become the overlord of this land, and they remained so till 1760. From 1740 to 1760, son of Bajirao, Balaji Bajirao, who was also called Nana Sahib Peshwa, ruled from Pune. There were other Maratha kings as well, but he was the main leader. One very important thing happened during this time is that Balaji Bajirao obtained authority from the Satara king, which was the line of Shivaji, that the Peshwaship will be hereditary instead of appointment of the prime minister from the king. So that meant that after Balaji Bajirao, there was a struggle among the leaders, the Peshwa leaders, to gain control. So after 1760, in the 1761 war of Panipat, it was a debacle. Madhavrao Peshwa became the de facto ruler, and Madhavrao Peshwa ruled for around 10 years. He was the leader who was responsible for re-establishing Marathas in the northern part and the eastern part of the country. From the southern part, by then we had Hyder Ali, and there was a struggle between Hyder Ali and the Marathas. Marathas generally overcame, and they used to collect tribute from the Mysore dynasty. So after Madhavrao Peshwa died because of serious illness, and after Madhavrao came Narayan Rao in 1773. Narayan Rao was the younger son of Madhavrao, but Madhavrao's uncle Raghunath Rao wanted to become the Peshwa, which led to murder of Narayan Rao in 1774. After that, Peshwa Raghunath Rao was coronated, but Nanaji Fadnavis are the finance minister basically, he didn't like it. And there was a chief justice in those days, amazing, right? So there was a chief justice in those days in Pune who pronounced Raghunath Rao Peshwa guilty, and Raghunath Rao Peshwa then ran off to the British, which led to the War of British, which I talked in the previous video. So there was this formation of Barbhai Council, and this Barbhai Council consisted of Nana Sahib Peshwa, Tukoji Holkar, Madhaji Scindia, who was the overlord of the north and is called the Titan of the North. We will talk about Madhaji Scindia in another video. So this Barbhai Council then ruled in the name of infant son of Narayan Rao, who was Madhavrao II, and Nana Fadnavis from 1780 to 1794 ruled very well. But by then there was this decline of Maratha Empire had started, because 1794 Madhaji Scindia died and he had no child of his own, so Dulat Rao Scindia became the ruler from Gwalior. Then there was fight between the Holkars of Nagpur. After 1795, son of Raghunath Rao, Balaji II, became the Peshwa, but he was not a very young Peshwa. He basically went to the British and had some treaty with them, which was not liked by other Maratha Sardars like the Holkars and the Scindias. There was many war fought between them. So 1803 there was second Anglo-Maratha war, which the Marathas lost and they had to sign some treaties. And 1818 was the third Anglo-Maratha war. Now these Anglo-Maratha war were the hardest fought for the land, and these Anglo-Maratha war passed majority of the land of India onto British hand. Just for an example, there were no Anglo-Rajput wars. You won't read about Anglo-Rajput wars because the Rajputana was transferred to the British mostly from the hands of the Scindias of Gwalior, who were controlling the Rajputana, and they were also controlling Malwa, northern India, north of Delhi, and some part of the Ganga belt as well. So this is the overview of the empire, the Maratha Empire, which was founded under very duress of annihilation, went on to become, within 100 years, less than 100 years, went on to become the major force in, I would say, in Indian subcontinent, and Indian subcontinent, a force in Indian subcontinent is huge. And then also very quick decline. So we will, In our upcoming videos, we will learn about what led to such a sudden rise and such a sudden decline. Why is it important is why this Marathas rise of Marathas is important is I'll give you an anecdote. The Jagannath Puri temple of Odisha, people were not visiting it. It was the Marathas, the Nagpur Marathas, who started the trip of Jagannath Puri. And there was a saying in Shivaji's time that from Katak to Atak there should be a Hindvi Swaraj. So this place had become obscure, but the Marathas facilitated pilgrimage from across the country to Jagannath Puri, which led to what you currently have, the Jagannath Puri being revived. So there were other very important cultural sphere and cultural part of this country which was revived by the Maratha. The Kasi Vishwanath temple was partially rebuilt by the Maratha, which was completely destroyed by Aurangzeb. So there was a cultural significance of what we are today and the way we are holding this country, and you had many Sikh and Rajput and Hindu kings at the time of independence who went with the Indian Union and not with the Pakistani Union, is because the Marathas broke the siege of the Turkish rulers basically. So we will talk about the other aspects of the period, the episodes, and we will talk about each of these leaders. Each of these leaders were very important and very significant in shaping the boundary and shaping the culture of our country today. So keep tuned in. We will be back. Thank you.